Well, build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers. I'm Matty.
Good evening, I'm Colin.
Good evening. Not the focus of a Dispatches documentary.
Yet.
Aye. And it might not be evening when you're listening to this as well. Just so we're recording in the evening. Because, Colin, you were away doing the kilt walk this morning. How did that go?
Aye, it was good. It was just the wee wonder, which was funny because we just put the sponsor thing out around the family and friends and that, as well as on the Twitter. And I think some of the family thought that we were doing the proper one. Well, they were all proper ones. They were all the kilt walk, a kilt walk. I think one person specifically in the family, I think, thought we were doing the marathon one, the 20-odd mile one, and sponsored us a lot more money than they normally would. We were like, they didn't care, we were doing the 5 miles.
And have you told them?
No.
Good.
Just that they're being generous.
So, did they listen?
I don't think so.
No, well, so you're probably in safe ground then.
Scott.
Aye, Scott will be fucking listening.
It's your mate for school who's now my brother-in-law. So, he'll not be listening. He doesn't even reply to messages in a fucking group chat that's fairly active. So,
no chance.
No
chance. You're all right. And you guys are on the pilot beer, I can see.
Yes, I'm having the peach Melba.
Oh, aye.
The retro kit. It's actually, do you know what? It's not bad. I'm not a big fan of like craft beers and what have you, but that's actually quite pleasant. It's probably, do you know what? It probably tastes more of a fruit drink than a whatever it is. I'm not sure if it's a lager or a craft beer, rather than a craft beer that's trying to taste a bit fruity, if that makes sense.
Aye.
Aye. Well, that's my third one. I'm on. That's the pale ale. I had the lager and the what was the other one I told you already? Fuck's sake. There's IPA.
The IPA.
Lager was nice. IPA was okay. That's the pale ale's nicer than IPA, but then I'm not really an IPA guy. And I'm not sure what this peach Melba's got to be like. We'll find out probably halfway through this or during extra time.
If you had a peach Melba yogurt, it's actually no dissimilar. Like in terms of the taste, obviously the texture's completely different because it's a liquid, not a yogurt. But no, it's good.
Does it smell peachy?
I'd say a hint.
A hint.
A hint. Colin, you said you're not an IPA guy. What 3 initials would you use to describe you?
I don't know, actually. Didn't think about that. I'd probably like a Z or something to be involved, though, just because one of the ones you don't use very often, a Z or an X. Well, I don't know. What would you use to describe it?
What about triple Z?
Triple Z?
Well, it would tie him with the sending folk to sleep narrative for the podcast, wouldn't it? Like that. It would. You could have triple X, it could be 3 kisses, or it could be, again, subject to a documentary soon. So
I should say, I don't think I finished about the community kill walk thing for the community, though. It was a brilliant turnout for the Hibs players. There was like most of the first team there. I think it was just maybe the ones that were injured that never turned up. New manager was there, and there was double figures of players who all just mingled and walked with the other walkers and stuff. So it was excellent that they were out supporting the community charity, because it's a good charity. It does all stuff for, it does all the mental health stuff that we know about. It does the Fat Club stuff, or whatever the official name is that we used to do. We done a couple of times. What's it called? FFIT or something?
Yeah, football fans in training.
Aye. And the thing I like, they started these lunch clubs and that they do, for the homeless and or just lonely and stuff.
Yeah.
Just on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday and that. So that'll help fund all that stuff. So I think it's a really good charity. So it was great the players all turned up.
Aye, brilliant. The other thing I wanted to just touch on before we go into the podcast proper was just we found out last night about the sad passing of Stephen Dunn, who's I think a non-exec director at the club for many number of years. I was fortunate enough to interview him for my blog when I used to do that years back, and he couldn't have been more generous with his time. Fascinating story behind the guy and everything. So our thoughts go out to all of Stephen's family and friends. Yeah, he'll be sorely missed, I'm sure. Okay, let's go on to talk about the game yesterday. So, unfortunately, I was away at an escape room yesterday. I had sort of pre-booked arrangements.
Could you get out?
I could. Well, it's funny. Well, we talked about this on Short Bangers about the potential for hassle, right? And I think planting the seed early doors meant it went pretty smoothly when we got in. And it's like he's done an escape room before.
Just once.
It's like, see if you've played Tomb Raider. It's like that. It's like solve the puzzles that you would solve in a video game. So I was like, that's fucking right up my street. This. So we got out. Anyway, long story short, we got out, but I missed the game. We got out just a couple of minutes past 3. So
who the fuck books it for that time? Do they not know that?
Well,
if it was on 3 o'clock on Saturday,
I can. It was for my sister-in-law's birthday. It'd been sorted out, and actually, when we got there, she didn't think I was going to be there because the football.
So were you a disappointment?
I could have potentially have missed it. I was glad I did it. Like, it was good fun and nice to spend the time with the family and stuff. But it did mean that I had to make do open all mics.
Did they listen to the podcast, the family? Because you didn't need to be nice, just in case.
no, they don't listen. But no, it was nice. Josh listens, I think. So
like twice if they're in the room with you just now.
No, they're not. It's all right. I'm in the room on my own. So that was good, but yeah, it meant I had the joys of open all mics, and it was Lee McCulloch, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember his name. Lee McCulloch that was commentating on the game or reporting back for the Hibs game, and he never had a nice thing to say about the game the whole time. So I came in just as it went 2-0, and sort of followed it for there. But he was just had a big downer about it. I don't know if it's because Killie were getting beat up to them, but I suppose what's your first impressions? The first game for Nick Montgomery. Colin, first impressions?
I thought we should have won.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we could have won, and we just sort of defensive frailties, if you want to call it that, let us down again. But it was quite attacking formation. I thought we played all right. Like you messaged me, that's how I knew it was Liam McCulloch. So I was at the game yesterday for once. I went to an away game, and I was quite enjoying it. And it was, I thought we had chances. Like you've probably seen the highlights, we'll talk through it. But Boylan, it was like 10 seconds. Like they kicked the ball at him and he just ran straight to the middle of them and probably should have scored. It wasn't great. It wasn't a great finish. Then he had another shot the keeper tipped over. Then we got the goal, and we had a lot of possession, neat and tidy play. I thought we were playing no bad. It was decent. Like, and you wouldn't even know that we were on a carpet rather than grass.
What do you think, John?
I thought there was a couple of interesting. I don't know if I'd call them. Let's call it developments. So there was a few exciting things there. Like Colin's described the run for Martin Boyle straight for kickoff. That I think on a different day the rebound the save for the keeper probably lands at a striker's feet and he tucks it away. Then there was a cutback. I think was it Ewan? I don't know if Ewan cuts it back for Boyle when he puts it over the bar. But there was. There was a few situations like that were really pleasing to see. There was much more. It was much more exciting going forward. It was much more. You were seeing much more of what the players are capable of in an attacking sense. I think that's been missing certainly in the league campaign in the first 3 games of the season, where it was just we were just lacking. Like we talked about it previously about like lacking in fight and whatever, but it was. Like I think the team looked a bit dispirited previously, and it looked like I think after the Aberdeen game, and with the work that Montgomery's done since he's came in, they were starting to look a bit more like what we know they're capable of. But there were other aspects of the game as well where I think the pitch definitely played a part. So I think Newell had a bit of a ropey game, but I think that was more about like trying to get the ball under control, trying to get it moving. I think the pitch played a part in that. But overall, like I know obviously like we were 2-0 up and came back Killie got it back to 2 each. But overall I think it was a promising start under Montgomery. And it was, do you know what, I think as well after like the last few weeks, having lost a manager, having gone through the who's it going to be, and you've actually got a guy in charge now, it was quite nice to get back to football. Like a sort of regularly established kind of football club, football game, that kind of thing.
Colin, you go to start about talking about the first 11, so the starting lineup. A couple of surprises in there. The main one, I think, being Hanlon dropping out for Rocky, but also Jair coming back into the bench. Were you surprised with the lineup?
I think I was surprised Hanlon it was on the bench because he's the club captain. So is he the club captain or the team captain now? He is the club captain again.
I think overall captain, yeah. I don't know if
he was club captain last year and he's now captain again. Yeah. Aye, whatever. But to then put him on the bench, I thought was because if he's no fit, he just wouldn't bench him at all. You would just have him no there. So to put him on the bench is almost suggesting in a week he doesn't fancy him.
He's no showing that week.
Because it's a bit of a statement really to no play the captain. You coming in, you kind of would. Well, you tell me you're the leadership guy, but you would do you would know to rock the boat too early.
Aye.
Is that right? Am I right?
Well,
it's normal in football for that to happen anyway.
Yeah, you would say that it would like most managers, unless they want to do like I think Aberdeen did it, didn't they? Once Goodwin left, Robson came in. It was the first thing he did was bench the captain. He's basically when you're no good enough and fucked him off.
But he was already at the club, Robson, though.
Aye, well that's true. But then I suppose you've got Gray there, so for the continuity aspect. I thought it was a bold decision. I don't know whether he thought Killie are physical, and that was one of their strengths, and maybe having Rocky in with Fish would prepare us better for that physical battle. I don't know if that's how it kind of panned out, but and Deutsch and Vente up front as well. How do you think they worked as a pairing, John?
I thought one of my observations, if you want to call it that, for the game was how deep Deutsch was dropping to try and support the midfield. And I think that I don't know if that isolated Vente up front on his own, or if it just kind of let Vente do what he does best. So in terms of what he does best, he seems to be a wee bit of a poacher. Like, I don't think he does a hell of a lot other than score goals, which I think is a really amazing quality to have as a striker. But no, I mean, we talked about it, I think I forget which episode it was, when we talked about some of the changes and what the strikers might look like. So it was interesting to see the pair of them up front and see what that might look like. And obviously we got to see a wee bit of Le Fondre as he's corrected us up front later on. And he actually had a really positive contribution. So I think that ties back to what we were saying before. Like, there's definitely options up front there between at least those three.
I think was a bit of a miss when he went off, actually, didn't it? Well, it was good after he went off. But...
yeah, he took a sore one out. It was like a knee to the eye socket. I think was the chat. I don't know if you heard the Montgomery interview after it. Said he looked like a robot with his eye thing in it, pretty much.
I think they said there was like 2 lots of stitches that he got.
Aye, didn't sound very pleasant. Anyway, the boy, I think, did they escape with a booking for it? The boy that clattered them.
I don't even know. I don't know. I can't remember if he got booked or not, but it's one of them. See, when I've seen it on the TV, the angles sports scene showed, it's hard to tell. At the game, you could tell the way he reacted. Fuck, he's been smashed there. But you couldn't really see what had caused it at the game, because you're behind the goals up upper tier and that, you know, and it was way up sort of on the halfway line. I've seen it on sports scene, and I still can't really tell if Boyd done it deliberately or how it actually came about.
I think it was an accidental clash. I know that there's been other situations where it appears to have been accidental clashes. So I think, was there a Kilmarnock player sent off at Easter Road for a high foot, connected with the foot to the head? And I guess the argument could be made that the knee to the face would be in the same sort of ballpark. But I thought it was an accidental clash. I think it was a combination of the knee coming up and Doidge's head going down.
I was going to say, I don't think they were in the air, were they? Doidge was maybe crouching a bit at the time as well. So. But it's hard to say. I mean, I'm not saying somebody kneed them deliberately in the face. If you've got to do it, you'd kick them rather than knee them, wouldn't you? Probably. But I definitely caught him. You could see with the way he sort of bounced off it. They thought, "Yeah, fucker, it's one of them you get hit and you go, oh yeah." So, looks pretty bad. I imagine he must be concussed in that as well, isn't he?
Probably
out for a couple of weeks.
I think even just for the stitches to recover, he'll probably come back with one of these masks on or something like that. You know, I felt bad because by all accounts, Deutsch was having a really good game up until that point, and we sort of missed him after he went off. The first goal comes from a corner, wee bit of head tennis, if you like, and then Miller swivels on it. I think it hits the post and goes in off the goalkeeper, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've scored a couple of goals like that recently, so against Aberdeen, similar sort of idea, wasn't it? A cross that was kind of knocked about, and we've managed to score, and then Miller's one there. Do you think this is something that they've been working on?
I just think I don't think you work on that. I think that's just about like desire and all they words, isn't it? Like about winning seconds, winners,
second ball. Aye.
Maybe the manager was shouting seconds and winners.
Aye.
But to be fair, like I know that we take the piss out of it, but I think the difference between previous games and current games is that they have shown that desire to go for the ball. So like Doidge has obviously got a sore one yesterday for putting his head where it hurts, but he done that against Aberdeen, which actually resulted in a goal. He's taken a bit of a bang then. I think obviously Jago yesterday, I wouldn't have associated him with the header that he, with the sort of winning header on the edge of the box that leads to the chance for Miller, but there he was. So I wonder if that was, wonder if that's come from Montgomery's contribution in the last week and a bit.
Aye, so I guess a good point you make, especially liking in the back to Aberdeen last week as well, John, for that desire and attitude, because it was definitely missing in the final days of the Johnson, certainly in the league games, maybe not in Europe, but in the league games you never really saw that from for the team. Second goal, I thought was a good bit of play for Yuan to play in Vente, and he's taken a decent touch and just rolled it in. Wrong footed the keeper a wee bit, you think?
Mm-hmm. He's just maybe earlier than the keeper expected.
I think the two things that Vente's goal and Miller's goal had in common, it was just touch and hit. There was no waiting for anyone to kind of get themselves set or whatever. I thought Lafondre, his involvement to sort of break the ball up and get it to Yuan, and Yuan's ball was like, it was maybe 2-3 yards, but it was perfectly weighted for Vente to run onto. That was a really good bit of play.
And then obviously we go 2-0 up and concede almost immediately after that. Colin, you want to talk us through the goal, first goal that we conceded?
Well, Marshall made I can't remember what happened before this, but Marshall made a save and the rebound went out and the boys just smashed it in, and Marshall couldn't get his feet moved to get back down for the save, and the guy was totally like on his Todd. I think somebody in one of the group chats says that the left-hand side switched off. I mean, you look at it, there was nobody near the guy, and maybe they did switch off. But I can't remember how it came about. I don't know if it was a corner or anything. It was just...
Stevenson stepped in around about halfway, I think, to try and win the ball back. Like Arlen and Stevenson, I kind of should have just lazily grouped them together, right? But the two of them over the years are good at that sort of like taking a step from behind the attacker in front of them to take the ball. Sometimes they get it wrong, and when they get it wrong, they look bad because then the attacker's away. Stevenson had one of those where he'd stepped in, didn't win it. The boy was waiting in the wing. Rocky has come out of the centre half position to cover wide. By the time Stevenson, so he holds the ball up, Stevenson gets back, but no, that doesn't do enough to stop the cross or the ball coming into the boy that takes the first shot. Rocky's totally switched off and is just sort of walking back.
He's ball watching.
Aye, he is. And then that's left the boys just kind of strolled into our box and smashed in the rebound. So there'll probably be a few sort of lessons to be learned for that one. But I think the big one was just like, as always, concentration. I think that catches us out so often. And if Rocky's a bit more switched on, if Stevenson's a bit better with his initial interception attempt, then we could probably avoid that goal.
I don't know where it was.
Sorry, John, I was going to say, was it anything to do with it? See, after we scored the second, did the manager do the pointing at the head thing?
Yeah, it's funny. See, I've been playing Football Manager loads on the Xbox recently, right? This is when you've got time to kill at home, right? And whenever I score, you can do touchline shouts, and there's one that says "focus." So I just say, the only reason I do it, this is ridiculous, Colin, is because I go, I think in these conversations, and in my head, that's what they're touching the forehead, like the temple, going focus, like that.
Because if you've never done it, then I'm already thinking, fucking, is this the right man? with the jump.
Aye, well, so aye, it was like a lapse in concentration, definitely an avoidable goal, and then I think that swung the momentum in Killie's favour. John, like, kind of, I don't know, what do you remember about the second goal?
What I've seen on the highlights. So like Colin said about the first goal, it just kind of happened. You're like, fuck, what happened there? But as you've described, Stevenson's kind of gone for a challenge. They made it. Rocky's ended up ball watching. What I was going to say there before before Colin made me laugh with the whole focus thing was I don't know where it was that I watched it or read it. It may have been in the Evening News article with the guy whose name I've forgotten, John. I want to say McGeechan.
Yeah, I think
Evening
so.
News reporter. It may have been in there where he was talking about how Montgomery likes to play and where the goals often come from are wide areas when fullbacks get pulled out of position. I don't think that's exactly what happened there yesterday. I think it was two things, like you say, Stevenson no making the challenge, then Rocky ball watching twice, I think. But the second goal, the corner, like the Killie player just gets in front of Lewis Miller and gets a wee flick on. That's it. It's in the bottom corner. I think if I was being really, really harsh, I think what maybe happened or what maybe Hibs were experiencing at that point was maybe a little bit of panic, or possibly that Killie were putting on a little bit of pressure, which kind of gave it that appearance of Hibs panicking a little bit. And I think one thing that Montgomery can maybe work on with Hibs, and it seems I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like in recent years, like if Hibs are ahead, like going into like the sort of last 10, maybe even 15 minutes, we start getting deeper and deeper and inviting more and more pressure on ourselves. I don't think it needs to be that way because prior to that, one of the things they were saying on the TV was that Hibs game management at that point was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then we conceded one, and it just kind of felt like, oh, fuck, panic stations, happy feet kind of thing.
They had a couple of shots in that before that, I think, didn't they? The boy came off the bench and sort of hit the top of the roof of the net, and did another one as well. But what about that goal? You're right about the corner, but it being a corner in the first place was probably the root cause of that, because it was a shitey corner to give away. Although I thought at the time, and I was at the other end of the ground, and I've seen it on the telly, that it's a free kick, like 8 times out of 10 anyway. Like the defender falls down, the striker's behind him and nudges in the back of him, he falls down, it's a free kick.
Was it Bashiri goes down?
Aye, it was.
Aye, I forgot about
and
that.
And then on the way down, I think he thought, fuck, the ref's not getting this, I better just fucking swing my leg at it and get rid of the ball. Like, because he was looking for the free kick, and the boy fucking bumped into the back of him. Like that's one of the frustrating free kicks that probably shouldn't be a free kick.
But always is. Aye.
And it wasn't, for some reason. It would have been soft as fuck, but they all are. So, like, we can't then get into fucking, well, how soft was it? Was it really soft or just a wee bit soft? It was a fucking free kick, because they're always free kicks. So, I don't know why it wasn't, but he could have just knocked it out for a throw-in seconds before that rather than risk it.
Aye, I think it had shades of fish at Tynecastle, isn't it? Just making like a bad decision when you're in control of the situation and you make a bad decision.
Is it a bad decision though? Because it's always a free kick. So his decision was, I'm going to win a free kick here and we'll just launch it out of the park.
Aye, but then if there's no enough, like if there's no enough, he doesn't have to win the free kick. He could have just cleared the fucking ball.
Well, he could have, but next week though, is it a bad decision though? Because it's a bad decision because they never gave the free kick. Next week when he falls down and gets one for even less, is it a good decision?
I think what's his frustrating sometimes is that free kick that gets given is when it's not given. So I remember Porteous not being awarded that. I want to say up at Pittodrie, like it does happen on occasion. And I think, unfortunately, when some of the positions that Hibs have tried to do, it's like Rocky yesterday and Porteous up at Pittodrie, I'm sure it was, or maybe even it was at Tannadice, it allowed the opposition to attack. Like it's like mucking about with the ball on the edge of your area. Like you're just better off getting rid of it.
Yeah. There was a bit of that yesterday as well, actually, knocking the ball about. You see the by kicks, they were taking the defender was taking it and knocking it to Marshall, and he was like taking ages to just launch it. And you think, well, why didn't you just launch it if you just got to launch it? Like, why are you getting a rocket to knock it into you to launch it?
I think we've got one of the talking points about that, so we'll come on to it. So it finishes 2-2. basically, I think, hold on for the draw, right? Killie obviously pushed for a winner, didn't get it. When you were after the match, how were you feeling? Were you enthused about what you'd seen from the team, or were you left with a feeling the same old, same old? Colin, I'll come to you first, then I'll get you, John.
I know it wasn't the same old. It was more I was disappointed because I thought we were going to win and win comfortably. Especially when I spoke to my brother at half time, I bumped into him in the concourse and we're like, get a second goal, and the game's done. That was how we thought it was. And then I'm thinking we get a second quite early. I thought we could go and get 3 or 4 here because we were playing. I thought we were playing well. I didn't. Back to something John said earlier, I thought Newell was all right yesterday. I didn't think he was that bad. I thought he kept things moving along in that in the midfield, and Boyle and Ewan, if they'd ran at the centre of the defence more often, they were shit scared. Like, twice, because Ewan had a run no long after Boyle, I think, straight in the middle of the defence, and the defence just were like, well, fuck this, I'll just keep backing off. I thought we could come away with a proper, what do you call it, statement victory. That's what I've heard.
Statement of intent.
Before. One of them, and just kind of threw it away with bad defending. I was disappointed rather than thinking. I was enthused, and then I lost my enthusiasm because of that. But I never went to the same old, same old. I was more like, fuck's sake, that was disappointing. But with a bit of optimism, I suppose, because of how we set up attacking wise and that.
John, same question to you.
I'm away feeling reasonably optimistic for the reasons that I described. Like, I think the better things that have, what I was saying before about like some of the thing, like Boyle and Ewan, for example. So I think maybe one of the scenarios that Colin was maybe describing was a ball that Stevenson played in for Ewan, and I think he's cut it back and it's led to a chance. We've not scored from it, which was unfortunate. The other stuff, so I think the 2 goals that we conceded, there was obviously the fuck up with the corner, and there was the getting caught out of position, but I think they're things that can be worked on. I think going back to a comment I made in a previous podcast was around the number of goals that Hibs have scored and the number of goals that we've conceded. So I think in the first 3 games we'd conceded 8 goals. In the last 2 games in the league we've conceded 2 and we've scored 4.
Yeah.
And I think that bodes well for the future.
Definitely progress, isn't it? Okay, I'll get some talking points from off of Twitter. First one, I had that teed up there, and fuck knows what I've just pressed there, just lost it.
Back at the dispatches for it.
Oh, do you know, everything's fucking Russell Brandon now, isn't it? Tell me the truth. Was it Russell Brand that you expected that to be about when the news first came out that they were going to be having an expose on comedians, or did you have in your mind it might have been somebody else?
He was probably in the top 5, but he wasn't in the top 1 or 2 because of the other. Because the reasons why the other 2.
What do you mean, Colin?
Just for another day.
What do you know?
Let's subscribe to the content. Right, Kaiser Soze, first comment, said switched off second half, lucky not to lose the game. Defensively inept and some poor decisions in the box to square or cut back at the time. Cunts. Sort of like the defensively inept and some poor decisions in the box, right? So those have both been failings of the team all season, haven't they? Like that at either end where it's really, really matters. We've made bad decisions and made mistakes. And I think that's definitely what Montgomery's priority is, to sort of fix out either end of the pitch. And then that's like fucking obvious. Like if you're coming into a team where the manager's been sacked, or obviously you're going to have to fix some problems, and generally it's because you're scoring less than you concede. So fixing both ends is absolutely stating the obvious. I'll shut up now. Can you imagine if Shearer and that, Ken on BBC and or the boys on Sports Scene, if they had the self-awareness, I'm bigging myself up here, to realise that they've just said the fucking obvious. They've just, Stephen Thompson said, right, Stephen Craig, what do you think about that? Oh, well, they conceded loads of goals, so the defence is a problem. That's fucking obvious, Stephen.
I wish they would.
Well, I'll change it. Can I change my answer?
Failed. Start again.
Right, next point. Guys on safari. I said 3 points would have been great yesterday, but happy we got a warts and all performance yesterday. It shows Montgomery where the issues lie and hopefully creating a much better long-term fix. John, so the point there, was it good for Montgomery that he saw both sides of the Hibs in his first game?
That's a good question. I guess if Montgomery doesn't see the bad things in Hibs, right, and suddenly like it was just to miraculously correct itself overnight, and we had a really good defence, and we went the rest of the season, say, or like right up until the last game of the season, we hadn't scored a goal, and then we had a defensive lapse that caused us a problem. There would be Hibs fans going, "See, I fucking tell you, that's been a problem since fucking but way back then." So I do think it is a good thing that he saw. I think, to go back to a comment that I made, I want to say it was an extra time episode where I said that there was a focus on like the next 5 games or whatever, and I said that I didn't think that the points were as important as the performances and I don't think I said what he got to see out of the team, but that forms part of it.
Yeah.
So, but I also think as well, if like probably the most important thing for Hibs is that long-term appointment. So Montgomery is going to get at least a transfer window to try and make some changes. So whatever it is that he's seeing now that isn't quite working, he's going to get that opportunity to change it. But long term, like there's always going to be these little tweaks, these little changes that need to be made. So if you get the stuff up the other end of the park working like in the strikers, because we're all aware of what they're capable of. I think we saw possibly the best of them yesterday, with the exception of the goal scoring. At the other end, like we know that there's frailties there's difficulties with like players' ages and what have you. So like Stevenson cannot play forever; he will need to be replaced at some point. But we don't have a replacement there as such yet. Like Obita, when he came on, I don't know how long exactly he got, but he's not starting at the moment. So you kind of wonder, like, is he the long-term answer? Bashiri seems to have, I wouldn't call it an implosion, but he seems to have these mistakes either side of like really good performances.
Yeah.
He's not a replacement for Hanlon, so there's going to be small tweaks and changes that need to be made. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to see shitey things like that, and I don't think that's necessarily Montgomery's fault, albeit he'll be accountable, as Colin's described before. But he'll have that opportunity to see it and change it. Like, we need that time.
Do you think, Colin, I think you're spot on with that, John. Do you think that's the danger when a manager comes in mid-season? That he's almost going to have to see these mistakes when it matters?
But you're not going to see. When else would you see the mistakes?
Well, through your pre-season. Do you know, like, if you think of stuff that...
Doesn't it? Like, doesn't it? I think they'll get to see it in training, but it's never the same. I think you're only going to make these kind of mistakes in pressure games like that, because the pre-season game, you know, I mean, it would just... Rocky might not try and win that foul, I suppose, in a pre-season game, because he'd try and do a fucking Cruyff turn or something. You know what I mean? You're only going to see it in these games.
Yeah,
so I think, but to answer the question about in a way, when I first thought about it, I thought it was good that he's seen that, because he's seen the good and the bad. But then I thought, well, I suppose he wasn't probably to see the bad. That's maybe why he's taken Hanlon out and put Rocky in, because he's thinking there must have been some kind of thinking behind it. And I'm not just blaming it on Rocky either. Like, it wasn't just Rocky, but it's still a while away to the window, so he's not going to be able to replace anybody. So he needs to make them better now, like we spoke about. That's what we spoke about. It's one of your criteria, I think.
Yeah.
Somebody that can just make the players he's got better, rather than having to spend fucking fortunes all the time going about windows like the last, certainly manager, maybe 2 managers have talked about, and fucking 3 managers, when the next window is, because that's what we've fucking seen me focus on, when the next window is, rather than making what we've got better.
What about Harbottle? Do you think there's an opportunity for him to come in now then? Because he's not really had a look in yet, has he?
I've not seen much of the lad yet, Dickon, if he's how good he is.
Be interesting to see, because I think we've talked about it before, about the left-sided centre-half and what they bring to the team. And I think, in contrast, I think you maybe saw the weakness in Bashiri yesterday playing on the left side of defence. I don't know enough about Harbottle to know if he'd be able to play on the left there. When I've seen him down at Blackpool, I think he's maybe had another appearance since, and he's always been on the right. So I think what we need to try and steer clear of is what Johnson was doing previously, where it was just kind of like chucking bodies and seeing what would work.
Aye.
We need something. It needs something consistent there.
Yeah, a bit more deliberate and thought through.
Aye.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I know, like, taking into account what Colin was saying there, like, it is, like, what, 3 months, say, until the transfer window opens, if there was going to be change. I don't know if there would be wholesale changes. But I don't think the problems at the back are so severe that we're going to be in a danger for the next 3 months. As I say, like, if you were to look just at the first 3 games compared with the last 2 and the goals conceded in those first 3 and the goals conceded in the last 2, I think we've improved.
Yeah.
Albeit we could improve further.
Okay. Part Fry's image said, so much better than Motherwell. Clear intent to attack. By kicks will freak people out. But like that, we're trying to play football. Manager plays with 4 forwards. Need to score more of our chances. One of our better performances at Rugby Park in recent years. So playing with 4 forwards, and again, there's a lot of talk when Montgomery came in about the 4-4-2, and really that turned into like a 4-2-4 when we're attacking. Do you see that, Colin? Is that how it play out?
Aye. I mean, Boyle and Ewan are not going to do. They're not going to no go forward, are they? You know, so aye, it is. To be fair to them, Ewan was getting back at times yesterday. It's frustrating as fuck. Well, I lost my bake at one point. Like, you just no pass it. You know, I'm shouting. You can see it because you're up high as well. Like, so you look down, you're going, it's so obvious there's the ball, and he just keeps fucking running, and you pass the fucking ball. But he can do good stuff as well. It's just that greediness he's got a bit of me. It's frustrating at times.
Good when it works out the way. Like, do you know, that's the thing with players like you, Anne, is when it comes off, you sit going, fucking amazing.
But we spoke about that against Aston Villa, eh? It doesn't come off against the good teams. So if you do the basics all the time, then there's a better percentage chance of something happening. But if he tried that against Villa, he got fucking nowhere. Against Kilmarnock, he nearly got somewhere, but he didn't still. And you're not even getting away with it against Kilmarnock, so who's it got to work against?
Aye, but he did play on the pass for the second goal as well. Do you know, it's not like he's no getting it wrong all the time.
But imagine how good we could be if he was picking the right decision most of the time rather than some of the time. You know what I mean? And that's the fine margins, is it? We talk about.
Yes, indeed. First to wear the green said positives. Plenty of them, mainly the players, seemed to know what they were asked to do, and up until half time it worked. Liam Reynolds said, I said 2-2 before the game because I had no confidence in Rocky and Fish playing together. Not sure why you would change the defence that got us our first clean sheet of the season last game. Also amazes me how everyone seems to agree that booting players in the head is fine. Presumably that will be with reference to Deutsch. Boyle got a yellow card late on, didn't he, for a high foot, but I don't think he made contact with the player.
Oh, that's a good point, actually.
Red card if he had made contact, didn't
he? Yeah, it would have been a straight red.
I think that was the comment on Hibs TV at the time, was that Boyle had been booked, but the Kilmarnock player hadn't. I might be misremembering that. And I think it was kind of... and I think that was in reference also to Dickinson's overall performance being quite inconsistent.
I think there was quite a bit of frustration about the referee from what I've read post-game. Jeff Ashton said, just back, you could see the difference in style, especially in the first half. We should have been at least 3 up by half-time. I think Deutsch injury disrupted us as he had been tremendous all over the park. Small steps, but I was impressed. Remember that Infirm came here and didn't score a goal. I think that's important to remember as well, is that it's not an easy place to go. Like Rugby Park, certainly this season, has proved a difficult venue for both Rangers and Celtic, neither of whom have taken anything. Did they both lose, or did one draw and one lose?
Both lost. One was in the cup.
Right enough. So I think for us to put in a performance like we did and almost wins, probably a positive sign. Dom said first half was excellent, looked in complete control. Diego, Miller, Doige, all excellent. Still major frailties at the back that can't be miraculously solved. Don't think Marshall will be his goalie going forward if he's looking to play out every opportunity. And Rocky is far too shaky. Colin, you touched on the goal kicks. And there is another one. I think it was somebody. I think it was you and Macalis who just basically is goal kicks. What the actual fuck was his talking point. So, but what was it, playing it to the defender, then back to.
No, Rocky was taking it and knocking it to Marshall, who was standing in the centre of the goal. And then he was generally just pinging it along. You could do that for a standing start, like without having strikers run towards you. Once he got intercepted on one of them, nothing came of it, obviously. It just, but the striker got close enough to get a deflection on it and take it out for a goal kick, I think. But it's like I wasn't really sure what they were doing. Like normally the goalie would take it and they do all that thing now. Even my daughter's team do it. The centre halves go wide and they try and because Pep started it, so it's like now the licenses now. The C license, B license boys will do it. But it's like this was a new one. Centre half take it to the goalie into the middle and just putting yourself under pressure, as far as I could see.
Is it to trigger a press or to try to draw the opposition out
so that he can kick over the back of them for Boyle or Ewan to run? That's what I could think of. Because it never happened.
I don't know if you saw Heckenbottom having a wee rant this weekend.
I did.
And Heckenbottom was saying we play out. Who's he? Sheffield United. His goalie got it was Fotheringham off 2016 Cup final fame. So always like to see him in. Just go, oh, good, mind of him.
Still playing.
Still playing. Done well for himself in the Premier League. But he says he'd already been booked for a handball outside the box, and the referee was giving him a row for taking his time with the goal kicks. And Heckenbottom says, what we do is we play it to one of the centre halves and then we build from there. But Tottenham will try to stop us, and Tottenham adjust to what we've done. So the keeper has to see what Tottenham are about to do so he can make up his mind how he's going to play out. And he was getting frustrated because the referees were saying, well, they just need to fucking kick it long then, right? And just deal with it. Or we're going to book you for time wasted. And that was where he was doing his dinger. But his point was that the reason that they play it short was it triggers like an action for the opponent. And I don't know whether that's why we're doing that. And it could be like you say, Colin, it creates a bit of space for Boyle and Ewan if you're going to ping the ball over the top.
Possibly, that's what I think it was.
Hi. Fentis Plenty said, is Jair related to the Gordons?
I don't know.
And he did also say, obviously, hopes he does well. He says, I hope he flourishes under Monty, by the way. How did he do when he came on, Colin?
All right. He got a couple of touches. He done all right. He didn't look out of his depth, which is like what we've been sort of led to believe by the lack of appearances. Yeah, and maybe that one appearance he did have was at Livingston last year, probably this time last year. He only got about 10 minutes. It was because Ewan went off. He seemed to be holding the shoulder. I think he went. He got caught on the way through, and it didn't look that bad a tackle. But I think it was where he landed. It was a professional foul one. One of the ones he's clipped him on the way past. But it was. I think he came down heavy on his arm, shoulder, elbow, whatever it was.
On the concrete. Were you surprised to see Jair feature at all, John?
I was surprised to see him on the bench. Maybe less surprised to see him when he appeared. Like, I mean, could you imagine that he appeared on the pitch having not been on the bench? That would have been a big surprise.
All right, guys.
Remember me. But I mean, he came to Hibs with possibly a bit of unfair fanfare. Collins talked about like maybe downplaying expectations or sort of like not oversell them. So it'd be good. I don't know what it's going to look like in the future, but it'd be good to see him make a positive contribution to the game rather than all his contributions being remembered for what the fuck is he doing at Hibs.
I think I can't remember whether, and apologies whether it was Ramble or Down the Slope that I was listening to earlier in the week. I listened to them both, and they mentioned about Raimondo, who had been at Benfica at the same time as Jair, and potentially coached them. So there could be an existing relationship, and it could be.
So you're saying nepotism got him on the bench yesterday?
No, it could be that there's a familiarity there and somebody that knows what he's capable of and trusts him to do it. And this might be an environment for him to flourish, which I'm certain for all the criticism that he's had across the support, because it is obviously a move that's not worked out for him thus far. I think everybody would be delighted if all of a sudden we found out we've got this wee gem on our books that just needed handled in the right way.
Yeah.
Well, I think to that point, like we talked about it at the David Gray thing, that it wasn't that long ago that folk were talking about driving Joe Newell back to Rotherham or whatever. And now he's like, folk are singing Joe, Super Joe, Player of the Year. Like, so players can improve, players can show what they're capable of and why we signed them in the first place.
It's good to see a return of the Joe, Super Joe song as well. Like for those of us of a certain vintage, will remember that from the Tortolano days. So that's welcome. Che said Doidge going off weakened us in terms of the ball sticking up front. He was playing well up to that point. How the challenge is not a booking or even a red is unreal. Dangerous play, got absolutely zero off of that ref. I think we spoke about that already. Calvin Brown, hi Calvin, said could have been out of sight if Boyle and Yuan were more clinical. Rocky switching off twice. Think Monty sees our strengths and weaknesses yesterday. Sort out the centre back pairing, and we look pretty good in my opinion. Do you think that's fair? Like if we sort out those two positions in particular, we've probably got the foundations a pretty good team.
We've got the midfield going forward. I think we're pretty good. I think defensively we could be. And it might not even be the individuals. It might just be working them as a unit. The ones that, rather than chopping and changing and blaming Hanlon or blaming Rocky or blaming somebody not being left-footed and or whatever it is, actually just get them to work and communicate better.
And that's meant to be one of Montgomery's hallmarks from the Mariners, is the two banks of four and working as a unit. So, it's maybe a bit too early to try and see that over one game, but hopefully we can see that over the rest of the season in the coming weeks.
It's definitely an advantage of having a manager with that sort of reputation, isn't it? Is that the team becomes better than the sum of its parts, and therefore you would expect the defence, even if there's maybe a weak point in there, if the unit's functioning, then we'll carry that. Venty's Plenty said, is Monty currently the most successful manager ever with a 100% unbeaten record?
He's turning that one round, well
done. Charlie said
0% win rate though,
in the
stats.
I know. Fucking frustrating. Charlie said, I thought for the first half we were superb, switched off when we went 2-0 up. Jago looked good and goal kicks were strange. I wonder if Monty wants that to be the norm. Jago got quite a lot of praise yesterday, and Jago is a player who's been much maligned in some sections of the support, not universally, but I think the if folk who have an opinion tend to be pretty split, either really like him or really don't like him, and maybe not don't like him personally, but don't rate him. I think recently he's had a couple of really good performances. Do you think we're starting to see the best of Jago, John?
Maybe. I think it's always nice to see when players like actually start playing. Like, I don't know. So, like I mentioned, Joe Newell there before, and when players come to us and they have, they have a couple of good games, because I think when Jago came in, he had a couple of good games, and then he kind of fell away a wee bit. But I think him falling away a wee bit was part of, or potentially part of the Streaky Lee thing and our sort of misfortunes as a football club. So it's nice to see, like I said before, but like with Tavares as well, that when they start putting in a performance, it's quite pleasing. So yesterday, like I thought that Jimmy Jago, I don't think he did anything spectacular. He just did simple things really well. And I suppose that's the counter to what Colin was saying about Yuan. Like he wasn't trying to spray like 60-yard balls or try to be selfish with it and go on a mazy run. He just did simple things like the header that led to the goal and other moments throughout the game.
Okay, we've still got quite a few talking points to go through, so I'll not necessarily get used to respond to each of these, but if there's anything particular you want to jump in on, then do so. Otherwise, we're going to be here probably till Tuesday. Pablo said the whole squad are currently on trial. I think Monty will start to weed out the players that aren't good enough. There's a really good point came in after that, actually, and I'm going to dwell on this one. If I can just find who said it. Because there was one where the person, do you know what, I can't find the tweet. They pretty much just said, is it a good thing that players get a clean slate? Because well, Ken, like we've seen enough of the players to know who's good enough and who isn't good enough. So are we just kind of taking a step backwards? Almost is the question about if everybody's on trial, if everybody's got a clean slate, which sounds like a positive thing, but in actual fact, could that be a negative for us because we're just going to have a new manager learning what it took the old managers weeks and weeks and weeks to find out?
But did they learn that due to what they were asking them to do, or the formations they were putting them in, or the positions they were playing them out of position, or fucking asking them to do a thing that the new manager's not got to, they might come in and say, Rocky, just fucking clear it. Didn't fuck about with it. Didn't do anything. You know, whereas Lee Johnson might says, no, I want you to do a Cruyff turn and I want you to fucking overhead kick it. You know what I mean? We don't know, or playing, I mean, no, I don't get the point, but he's got to play him at left centre back when he's not very good at his left foot. But things like that, like actually asking them to do the basics rather than. So I think you do need a clean slate. You need to have, because there'll be guys there that were unhappy because they were out of the team, then they get a clean slate. And we think they're out of the team because they're not playing well and they're shite, but actually maybe they're not playing shite because the manager thinks they're a fucking dick and they're not getting them a game. New guy comes in and then they're thinking, I've got a chance again to get back in. So then they're motivated in a different way. But you could argue, well, why you not motivated all the time, which folk will, but it's like if you've got a manager you can't work with, yeah.
Aye. There was
I was just going to make a Terry Butcher example. So if Nick Montgomery was to come in and say and not give players a clean slate, and he went, you're not going to play for me again, and then he finds himself in an injury crisis unless they call on them, then we're fucked.
Right.
But actually giving the players a clean slate, I think, is the right way to go, because then he has the opportunity to work with them and see them and like have them prove to him that they're worthy of a space in the team. And if he decides at some point in the future, actually, it's not going to work out with us, then he can have that respectful conversation that says, actually, I need to let you go.
I was doing some research on, was it leadership stuff, right? Over the last week, and I can't remember off the top of my head who it was. It was either a football team or it was somebody like Apple or Microsoft or Google or something like this. Basically, were to give people who are employed the confidence to go and just perform and not have that doubt about whether they were good enough to be there. It's like you wouldn't be here if we didn't believe that you were good enough to be. So if you're at the club and you're at this level, you need to trust.
Gary Neville.
Was it Gary? Aye, that's right. It was Gary Neville. What was that on? Was it just doing like a video? Aye. It was Ferguson. That's it. Ferguson said to Man United players, that's it. Like, if you're here, it's because you're good enough. And so then they start worrying about that. Just go and perform. You almost need to have that sort of approach. Like if you're Montgomery, to say if you're in the door now, if you've got this far with Hibs, you're good enough to be at the club. Now you need to kind of go and just build on it and not worry about fucking making the mistakes, etc. Like William Todd said, maybe not a bad thing in the long run, as he has seen our best and worst in one game. Second goal forced Killie to go for it, and that's when we struggled. We need to stop passing back to Marshall and take the responsibility to play forward when the high press is on. Mo Lothian said the same old two-goal cushion and foot off the gas defence needs a complete overhaul. I wouldn't be surprised if St Johnstone get their first win of the season from Hibs, although I bloody hope no. Well, we're going to look at the next 6 fixtures on Extra Time as well, so if you're a subscriber, our episode this week will be looking ahead at the next 6 fixtures. First to wear the green said if we persist in playing Rocky, even when an injury requires him to play Stevenson, who clubs are now more than ever targeting, I know he gives 100% every game, we will still defend like the second half. Jay Caldwell Anderson said we are better without a head coach. I think there's a bit tongue-in-cheek there. Lisa Buchanan said, can we please get past this only being able to play for one half game last 90 plus minutes? Andrew Brown said, going so well until Stevenson Rocky just switched off and they got the first. Coach Pete said, controversial opinion that will upset half of the fan base. Handling isn't the problem. Thoughts?
He's not the problem, is he? Like,
No, as in there are more than one problems.
I mean, it's a whole team, like it's a whole defensive thing. It irritates me when it's one person that gets the blame all the time, but because the whole point of a team is that you're meant to be in it together rather than it being fucking always one person's fault. Although I guess because he's not. So you could have a team where it's one person that's clearly at their depth, but he isn't. So he's not the problem. But that's not to say we couldn't get better.
Fair dues. Stuart said a huddle at the end of the warm-up. Is this a team bonding exercise? Somebody suggested that somebody might have lost the contact lens, but that was a new thing then. Do you think we should expect to see more huddles for the team?
Aye, I think so. Maybe a sing-song or something as well while they're at it.
And how do you feel about this? I think because Celtic got there first with the huddles in Scotland, at least like fucking having an established huddle, it sort of means that everybody else feels that they can't do it.
Aye, it does.
It's stupid, eh?
It totally does. It is. It's funny. It's funny because like my lassie's team do one before the game, and there's a couple of Rangers fans, parents, and they're like, when you started doing it, you know, because it's like how you can't think Simply the Best's a good song anymore, like that kind of. You know what I mean? I hate that song. Like Hearts fans only like fucking 500 miles. You know what I mean?
Aye. I'm all for having that. Like I think loads of sports do. Like teams do like had a weather the date in the dressing room, and I'm sure probably loads of teams do it in the dressing room away from like prying eyes, so they get slaughtered for trying to be like Celtic. But fuck Celtic, they shouldn't be able to dictate what
the women's team do it.
Aye, good.
The women's team do it, and they've done it for ages. By the way, they had a good win the day as well.
They did, aye. And, good bit for me because it was Aberdeen they hammered, and then they won the derby. Obviously, get me know what I'm talking about. With
amazing.
Great. McGregor said defence poor, but no surprises there. Liked what I saw from the rest of the team. Should have scored more. Hans said Hanlon haters got the wish. Dropped after the clean sheet last game. James Lumsden said Rocky. Discuss. I think we've covered Rocky. Tracy Smith said, I think there are lots of positives to take out the match. The gaffer has had 5 days to work with everyone, and you can see already they're happier. We have too much negativity the past 14 months. I'd rather focus on positives. I'm feeling excited about the season now. Now, I'll pause here on this one, right? Because somebody else messed with me. I'll no name who it was because they didn't do it on Twitter, so I'm not going to presume that they thought it was for broadcast, right? The person was at the game yesterday and had asked me just to mention it. So, Colin, you were at the game as well, so you'll be able to kind of speak from first-hand experience. But he said he was like, just so pissed off with the amount of negative and the amount of abuse that was getting shouted to players, like a lack of patience that fans had with players for making mistakes. And he thought it was worthy of discussion and just asked whether, you know, I would mention it. So I'll mention it just now. Was it something you noticed, Colin? And do you think it's something that as a support we could do better?
I didn't notice it.
All right.
Which is so, and I'm not trying to be a smart ass. I didn't, and I normally would like agree with that point. And that what's the point abusing them like that? I've already admitted that I did lose the fucking bacon. You had at one point, so I might be one of the people he's fucking talking about. However, that was just once, but I didn't really notice a lot of. It was funny because they got their goal. It was at 79, 80-ish minutes, and folks started leaving. And I thought, what are you going? Like, there's still 10 minutes to go. We're not even losing. But I didn't notice anybody really going daft. It actually sounded quite, especially at 2-0 up. You know, the Ventus song was out on the go and all that. It was I thought it was all right. I didn't think it was too bad. I didn't feel it was negative at all, actually. And I normally pick up on that quite quickly.
Well, hopefully this has been sort of isolated around where the listener was sitting, because it's definitely, like, I know I enjoy the game more when folk aren't getting abused. Like, as a fan, I like it when I'm sitting with folk who are getting behind the team. But I suppose if that was what you experienced, Colin, you can only take it on that. And I agree totally with Tracy's sentiment as well. Like, I feel like there's been loads of negativity around the club over the last wee while, and it is probably good to sort of almost have the clean slate as a support and just be positive about things for a wee while, until we've got good reason not to be. John Thompson says Rocky tries the Porto move and gives away the cheaper corner, and then they equalise from it. He gives us all, but he's a bomb scare most of the time. Mistake having him left-hand side of the defence as he's no left foot. I blame this as a tactical mistake. We struggled after Doidge's injury, in my opinion. Liam Ball just said, what is it with our defenders? Why can they not just defend properly? Sign 2 centre-halves from smaller clubs in the league or even the Championship, and I bet we don't concede as much. Becoming a joke now defensively. Rocky shouldn't even be on our bench. Keith Robertson said, positive start to the game. However, defensive issues came back later on. No one marking the back post for the equaliser. Hopefully we'll give Monty something to work with. And the last one I've got here, there's a few more, but we're not going to have time to read them out. Graham said, for me, the only changes we should ever be making is in defence or to rest Yuan and Boyle if they have to put a shift in. Stevenson, Campbell and Rocky are not good enough. All Rocky has to do was put into the stands, but didn't. For 60 minutes we played well. The last 30 is the same old. Okay, thanks everybody for sending in. Listening to the talking points on Twitter, please keep them coming, and we do try to get through as many as we can, but without making this a feature length movie episodes, we have to cut it short eventually. Looking ahead then for the next week, we've got St Johnstone. Very quickly, score prediction for you, John.
3-1 Hibs. And I'm going to back it with a free bet at the weekend like I did 2-2.
Excellent. Colin?
7-3.
Are you putting a free bet on that one as well?
I may as well. Okay. I'll get John to put 50p in it for me.
That's us. Thanks very much for tuning in. Like I said, we are going to now record extra time. We'll be looking a bit more depth than just chucking a prediction at it. That would be a short extra time episode day. We've got 6 fixtures. Quick prediction for you. Fucking 3-1.
We'll need to win them
7-3. Aye.
We'll be up to about 15 points with 18 and we'll be like, maybe we can get a draw when we go to Ibrox.
Goal difference plus 19.
We just won by Christmas.
Aye. So we'll go and listen to that. If you missed our extra time for last week, there was a good wee episode that went out on Wednesday or Thursday. I can't remember. We were a wee bit late last week because we were away doing other things. There's a good wee episode there anyway by Richard Harkis, and thanks again to Richard for joining us. We will see you next time. Cheers.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink what I know.